Awesome. All right. Well, Sean Connors with E-Team sponsor here at our budget broke podcast. What do we call it again? Budget cut podcast. The budget cut podcast. I like that.
Perfect.
Really, really special to be here down at the 2019 AFCA and here with one of my longtime buddies. Consider him a brother. Coach Brian Hamilton from Murray State, the Racers. Out there.
Shoes up.
Shoes up. There you go. I love it. Awesome to be able to get a chance to talk with Brian today. Brian, I'd love to. You and I can just spend a handful of months, man. Let's take a trip down memory road or memory lane here.
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about impact in terms of what E-Team sponsor can do and what we've set out to do over the course of the last 8-9 years. And I was hoping maybe you could just tell your story in terms of your client number one. I mean, if you go into our database and we pull up a list,
patient zero.
Yeah, you are patient numero uno, man, and we're forever grateful for that. But I'd love to just spend the next handful of minutes you and I just talk about what that when it started and your journey and our journey together, and we'll capture all that, man.
Yeah, it's good. It's really an incredible story. You tell it to normal people, and I mean, it's unbelievable. It's almost like a Disney movie when you get right down to it. So, we started off. I hired you to be the offensive coordinator at the worst public high school in Northern California.
A challenge.
I sold the dream of. I told you guys that as long as we didn't set the stadium on fire, we couldn't do worse than the last people. They'd won 4 games in 6 years. We had no freshman team. I got named head coach, and then we went into the equipment room, and the previous head coach had left all the jerseys muddy from the last game, and so we started our auspicious gig as head coach and official coordinator by doing laundry.
Laundry with a few tasty beverages as well.
Yeah, there's I did more laundry in that day than I've done in my entire marriage, and since then. So it was a deal where I think the best part about it was we could just do it our way, because it wasn't we weren't going to fail. I mean, our team wasn't in the newspaper ever. Nobody cared, and so we got to do it exactly how we wanted to do it, and we got to experiment. And we were young and we were passionate. We're old now. You got gray hair, and
you got some in your beard there, Captain Redbeard.
I know, man.
You do too.
I know. I'm old.
Sorry, you know what it is? That's wisdom whiskers. Wisdom whiskers, man. That's what we got.
It covers the double chin too. Yeah. It's a dual purpose.
I have to get into this thing. You guys really got that thing covered, man. I'm gonna have to. I don't
know. And so it was just 3 guys that believed in each other, that made it up as we went along, and fought and argued and learned and we're not happy with average, and we instilled that in a bunch of young people. When I talk to guys all these years later, that's what it was about. Is you weren't going to let us be average. You were going to set a standard and hold us to it. And so it was just a really amazing time. And you were referencing in the last segment about a district that cuts sports, and it happened at the exact right time. For whatever reason. It happened at the exact right time. I mean, you guys really got humming right when the district chose to get rid of sports, and really came in and saved the day. And the amazing thing is, and for those of you guys who haven't worked with ETS or aren't familiar with them yet, we won a state championship in year 2 with ETS. It was the only way that we got on the field. I mean, I went and told the principal, we'll be the fucking Chico Bail Bonds Minutemen. I don't care. Like whatever it takes to get these kids on the field, I'm going to do. And you guys came in and you had a platform and you had a solution, and it was out there. I mean, nobody knew what crowdfunding was, and nobody knew that if you put a credit card into the internet that it wasn't immediately going to be hacked. And we all just, there's a great saying, just jump and see if you grow wings, and that's exactly what it was, man. We all just jumped, and it turned out to be, ended up being the greatest 8-year run in a public high school in Northern California. And it really only happened because we found a way to make some money to keep kids suited up and keep them on the field.
It's pretty crazy. You think about like this I'll call it the synergistic alignment, right, of the two. And I mean, a lot of that I would say goes back to though something we talked about in our previous segment. Passion. What fuels that passion? Go back to taking over Concord High School football.
Yeah.
The worst program you could in
Yeah.
the state of California at the time. What was it that had you, after year 1, year 2, year 3, keep coming back? What fueled your passion to come back and do it again?
This is going to be the worst, least coachy answer ever, but because it's you, it was ego. I wasn't going to prove everybody right that we couldn't do it, that it couldn't be done there. I knew that I had 2 smart, committed individuals working with me, and I knew that the kids worked hard enough and that if we could give them the tools as adults that they would ultimately be successful. So I know that people have a lot more honorable answers than that, but the truth is I wasn't going to be proved wrong. And in doing that, whatever fueled it, it kept me up at nights and it kept me away from home and it kept me with you guys and it was all consuming and it still is. And I really don't know how to function any other way at this point. And neither do you guys,
Yeah.
and it's whatever it takes to get it right that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
And so that's really, I think, what kept me coming back. And I loved the kids and they needed us. They didn't have dads. I mean, 40% of that school was free and reduced lunch. Yeah. And 20% of our team was classified as special ed. And it was all the reasons that everybody said that just can't get done there. And that's when it's really special. I mean, we're here at AFCA and, Alabama and Clemson are going to play for a national championship. They should be there. It was a matter of how are we going to build this thing when we shouldn't be there? Because I think that's pretty special.
So let's do a deep dive, man. Let's turn it way back. The greatest question in the world starts with why, right?
Yeah.
So I know the answer to this, but I want everybody else to learn it because I think it's really special. I think it's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Tell everybody, why did you get into coaching? Why is coaching and mentorship so important to you? Why do you do it?
Oh man, I don't like you.
You love me. You love me. Hey, and I think, look, this is important because look, for us too, like this is why we talk about what fuels our passion.
Right.
Our passion to be able to give these coaches that it's really special to them, right? To provide this opportunity. I think your story is one that every coach should hear. This is a great story.
Yeah, no, it's not an uncommon story. It's just I grew up with a single mom, poor, and a brother, and it was high school coaches that checked on my grades and took me to Dodgers games with their kids, and made sure that I had $5 in my pocket when we went somewhere, and everybody else had money and I didn't. And I just have a tremendous passion for young people that have obstacles. Kids that don't have obstacles, they don't need me. They don't need Brian Hamilton. They might need somebody else. But a kid that is really struggling, but wants to move forward, man, that's what it's all about. Yeah. And so every day when I show up to work, and now I coach college football, and everybody said you're gonna miss that. Bullshit. I got my guys together the first day of summer, and we went to the grocery store. And we learned how to grocery shop on a budget. I pulled out the weekly mailer, and I taught them how to build a menu with that. And then we went over to my house, and we learned how to cook so they wouldn't, spend their entire summer stipend on fast food. Kids of all ages, and kids now are 24 years old. They need men. They need instruction. They need discipline. They need guidance. They need a safe place to say, hey, this is going on. And it's all encompassing, and it's every minute, and it's a 24/7 job. And that's what I love. And I really thought, being honest, I mean, that maybe when I have my own sons that it would tamper a little bit, but it hasn't. My sons have just grown up with hundreds and hundreds of brothers.
So awesome.
Yeah, no, it really is.
So awesome, dude.
I mean, when Brock was 9 years old, he was convinced that Jared Goff was his best friend and, sat at every meal with him. And it's just been such that's the good stuff. I love winning games, and I love scoring touchdowns, and I love keeping people standing up. But that's a finite skill. These young men aren't going to use that forever. I mean, not everybody's going to have a brilliant NFL career, but they need to know to show up on time, and they need to know to be honest when they don't know an answer, to ask for help, and they need to know that you got to pay your bills first and all those things. And that's really what drives me every day. You know, I love picking up blitzes and I love knowing what's coming on 3rd and short. But more than that, I like having a kid in my office that says, well, I just got my FAFSA check. What do I do with it? And how do I keep paying myself? And so that's really where I'm still most comfortable, you know?
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I love it. Hey, look, on the Budget Cut podcast, we're looking for authenticity, right? That's about as authentic as you can get, folks. That's awesome. Well, and again, I appreciate you sharing that story because I think it is important. You know, there's like you mentioned earlier, probably the answer that not a lot of people truthfully will answer is that sometimes ego does play a big part in why people do certain things, but you're doing it for the right reasons, man. And I respect the heck out of you for doing it, you know, the way you've done it. And
you can love kids and win, you know, it's
no shame in both.
For some reason, you know, we've gotten to the point where, you know, there are coaches that really love kids and there are coaches that really win. And I think there are a bunch out there that do both. Yeah. And that's my goal, you know, is to be a great human being and be a fantastic example and be a resource and really be a servant to these kids and also win games. And I think that discipline and setting extremely high expectations and not allowing them to be comfortable is all part of it. And but it's relentless, you know, it's all consuming. But if you don't have passion for it, then you shouldn't be doing whatever it is you're doing.
Exactly. Well, and again, we probably could sit here. I could talk to you for hours on end, but the one thing I've always admired this in you and the fact that, you know, the cliche you hear a lot, leaders are readers, right?
Yeah.
And I think we've probably talked about that, I'm sure, many a time. I know you're one of the most like obsessive readers I've ever met. I mean, anybody who thinks Art of War is something you should read multiple times, my goodness. I mean, you probably read it, 10, 12 times, I'm sure. So talk to me a little bit about just in terms of just, you know, the fact that you read so much, why you do it, what type of an impact that's had on you, and maybe how's that translated to what you do in terms of, you know, your coaching.
That's a really good question. And only somebody that knows me would ask that question. So I came to a point where I realized that if you walked into a library, you probably haven't had an original thought, that somebody else has had it and experienced it and written about it. And so again, growing up really on my own, you know, I had to go somewhere for resources and I had to go somewhere for guidance. And for me, it was coaches and a library. It was coaches and books. And there were answers there and there were ideas there. And so I've always been fascinated with how other people thought. I'm not brilliant, you know. I'm not even above average most days. But if you read people that are brilliant, and you read people that are above average, man, you can steal a lot of great ideas and learn before you have to make the mistake, and cushion your own fall. And what the buzzword right now is pivot and say, okay, well I'm going to try this because it worked in this set of circumstances. And so yeah, you know, I mean. I love to read. I read very little on sports, although everybody, you know, when you're a football coach, every book you get every Christmas is some coach. And not that there aren't good books by coaches, but, you know, there's so many good books. There's so much information out there. And how does it impact me? I think this is getting lost, and this is going to be a big tangent, is, you know, I mean, where you can watch something, you can watch a movie and you can experience it. But I think when you read somebody else's words and what they went through, you have to use your imagination, and then you have to feel it a little bit. You have to experience it with the author as opposed to watching it and then forming an opinion on it. When you're reading somebody's story, when you're reading about people being in Fallujah or Ramadi or whatever it is you're reading, you're experiencing that with them. And when you read about outliers, and when you read about the economy, or you read about you know, the best book I've read in the past year is Hannibal's Oath. And when you read about what Hannibal did in uniting tribes that didn't speak the same language into a campaign against Rome, you talk about being a leader. Yeah. That's it. You know, I mean, everybody in my room speaks English. You know, we can all move forward. I can't imagine uniting 8 tribes in a common cause when there's no common language. So I read to motivate myself. I read for new ideas. I read because it's an act. It's exercising your brain. And as I get older, I think, you know, staying sharp, and that's why, you know, we were talking about, you know, I taught myself how to play chess, because it's an exercise for the mind. You've got to use it for something besides picking up blitzes. And so it's just sharpening the tool, you know.
Love it, man. I love it. You know, and I think that like you said earlier, it's something that gets lost. I think nowadays, right? You've got so many people, especially when you talk about like just football, and specifically about like schematically X's and O's, right?
Right.
It's like you've got a lot of guys. They watch a tremendous amount of film. They come in. I like the way that concept works. May not necessarily ever truly understand the why component to it, right?
Right.
All they're seeing is the how. This is how it looks, right? But
Right.
there's never that foundational why, you know. And I think that's something that, and again, this isn't to sound corny, but I mean that's I think what's so exciting about why we love doing what we do is we're fueling passions like yours. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's so
100%.
cool. It's so cool that, you know, guys like yourself, coaches that are out there that really take their, I don't want to say their job, but you know, their craft.
Yeah.
They take it so, it's so important to them. And if we can provide them with additional tools necessary to, you know, we're bummed that you're not still coaching at a high school so that you could use our platform, you know. But if you ever do come back to high school,
that's the first call I'll make.
Yeah, you know, those are things that are really, I think it's really cool. So it's awesome to hear, you know, that you're still doing that and you're impacting young men's lives that, like you said, that need it. It means something to you.
Yeah, it's the greatest job on earth. And you know, I could go work in a juvenile detention center or do something else, but I like the scoreboard being on, and you know, I like violence, and I like you know, that it shows up, and that the work shows up, and it's the best classroom in America. You know, when you talk to coaches, we have the best students, we have the best classroom of anybody. You know, our kids are the most receptive students because they pass or fail every Friday night or Saturday afternoon or whenever it is you're coaching. And it matters. I mean, and so it's just such a rewarding gig. And it's just and it's a great profession to be a part of. But to go back again, we were talking, I was lucky enough to get to listen to the last segment, and you said, you know, our company functions like I want society to function. And it's the same thing with thinking in football. Yeah. If all you're thinking is about football, you're gonna miss the window. You know, with what's going on with offense, it has very little to do with you know, schematics. It has to do with space and time and one of my favorite books ever, you know, was Outliers, you know, and it talked about the guy that ran the full court press with the girls' 12-year-old team. Well, why'd he do it? Because it made sense to him. You know, and it ended up working. And so I think that if you just get stuck in doing what other people do, and like you said, the why, you can talk yourself out of a bunch of things because of the why. You know, I'll never forget, because, you know, Randy, for those of you guys that are watching and listening, Randy Coddington and I worked together throughout my career after Sean left. And we had gotten to a point at Concord High where we were pretty good. And I decided that I wanted to schedule up. And I said, I want to play San Ramon Valley. And everybody said, that's a dumb decision. And so Randy and I are sitting in the office over the summer, and I said, Randy, because Randy's the most pragmatic person in the world. I said, Randy, how many touchdowns are we going to lose by? He said, if we play our ass off, we lose by 21 points. And this is 2009. Yeah, 2009. Yeah. And I said, okay, we're going to onside kick every time, and we're not going to punt. We're going to play true 2-minute from beginning to end. And we did it. And we lost in the last 35 seconds playing traditional football, trying to run out the clock, and we fumble, and the guy takes it back. But, you know, for the last 7 years, we never kicked a PAT, never kicked a field goal. We went for 2 every time. We had an onside recovery rate of just under 40%, and we punted less than 1 time a game. And it was the why. You know, what is the why? Well, man-to-man, I mean, when we won that title, we had 24 kids on the roster, the second largest division in California. I mean, everybody else brought 2 buses in, and we had enough room to bring cheerleaders to every game.
Sure.
You know, yeah, we'll save the money. Just put the cheerleaders on our bus with us. Everybody played both ways. But had we stuck ourselves in thinking like everybody else, it never would have happened. You know, and again, you know, I mean, not to always bounce this back to you, but I mean, had you just said, you know what, guys, we'll have a card that people can sell, nothing. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, what you guys did, I mean, for us, was incredible, and what you guys did for programs in the area was incredible. And, it can't be understated. Money is important. You don't want it to be, but it is. When there's a difference in a $450 helmet and the level of protection you get versus a $300 helmet, I got kids. I want my kid in a $450 helmet, coach. Make it happen. And I mean, there are frills, like alternate uniforms and things like that, but there are also teaching tools. I mean, high schools and junior colleges that can use video on the sideline. Well, that's awesome, but it costs money. And you don't want to, as a coach, think that you're holding your kids back due to lack of funds. You don't want to think like my kids are not getting the same opportunity because of $10,000. And so that being able to bridge that gap and being able to feel like, well, they're not going to get us because of that, or I'm not going to lose a kid because we can afford ankle braces for everybody.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
That money does solve some problems, and money can probably make you pretty happy too. I'd like to figure that out one day, see if that works. But
I love it, man. I love it. Well, I think that was going to be my next question, which will lead me now to my last question. But I was going to ask you, just in terms of the outlier concept, really, in terms of you were one of the first coaches that I can remember, especially in the state of California, if not the rest of the country, that decided we're never going to kick PAT again. We're just not going to practice it. We're going to spend our time working more on red zone offense. We're going to go for 2 every time. We're going to change the game. We're going to be a game changer. And I've always admired that about you, is that you're a guy that's like, look, hey, there's a lot that you can learn by watching and listening to guys. But that's something where I think you and I are very much cut from the same cloth, where it's, hey, let's find a better way, man. There's a better way for us to do this.
What's the name of this podcast? The
Budget Cut Podcast.
Okay, so on the Budget Cut Podcast, right? So if you weren't willing to do the Budget Cut Podcast, if you figured that you could only do this thing right with ESPN quality mics, cameras, and everything else, it would never get done. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, people that are willing to budget cut and work within those parameters are leaders, because you refuse to let little things get in your way. And that's what you got to do as a leader, is you can't let little things get in the way. So here we are, and this will probably be the best podcast at AFCA. I mean, it features, one Mr. Brian Hamilton. But
hey.
Yeah, self shout out. But it's that's what life is about. It's about not accepting an obstacle. It's about not saying, okay, well, this is enough, or this is good enough, or I'm okay with being okay. If you're okay with being okay, you've got a miserable 40 years ahead of you, but every day's got to be about getting a little bit better in some way. It's got to be about not accepting your circumstance. It's got to be about, well, I don't know how to coach kickers, and so kicking scores points. And if I don't know how to coach it and teach it directly, then it has no value. I know how to coach red zone offense, so we'll work on 2-point plays. The most penalized phase of football is punt return. There's no segment of the game that is more risk reward than the punt return. So take it out, and I mean, we would just run off the damn field rather than take a block in the back. So it is a lack of fear in order to do what you feel is right with the materials that you have to advance everybody around you.
Love it. Well, the last question that I'm going to get to now is, I know you. There's we got some deep content here on the Budget Cut Podcast here with Coach Hamilton, but there's a much lighthearted side to Coach Hamilton, and I've had the pleasure of experiencing a lot of that. So I'll fire a few questions to you here at the end. And
here we go. I'm psyched up. I'm ready.
All right.
Rapid fire.
All right. Rapid fire. Favorite band of all time?
Oh, man. Metallica.
Favorite album of all time?
Legend by Bob Marley.
Best lead singer in a band?
Oh, Eddie Vedder, Pearl Jam.
Okay. Lastly, what was the last concert you saw, and where was it?
Oh, come on, that's not a great question. Okay, I got. I'll tell you the last time not the last time. I did get to see Green Day perform on the front lawn in Santa Barbara at a party in 1993. So as far as cool concerts, that's
concert of all
that's
time.
kind of undefeated. Like if you have a Red Solo Cup and you're listening to three guys that sound like they're from Great Britain and it's Green Day, and then oh man, yeah, so
And they're from Berkeley, California.
yeah, exactly, 100%. And then I got to see Sublime in Long Beach when we were down there at a backyard party. So as far as big concerts, man, I me and crowds,
Yeah.
I kind of, I'm not the best, but man, I've seen some brilliant small shows and but yeah, it's those are good questions.
Life outside of football. I know you're a big music head too.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, and then so then a couple more that'll fire away. Actually, do kind of bring us back to football. Who's the best high school football player you've ever seen with your own two eyes?
DJ Williams, De La Salle High School.
Why?
He hit Tommy Stallworth so hard.
Popped his ear pads out.
The ear pads came out, and we didn't even have enough headphones. But I turned and I said, I think those are his teeth. Dude, no doubt. That guy was unbelievable. And it was one of those deals like you almost turn into a fan. Like you don't care that you're getting beat by 30. Like I'm never going to get to see this on a high school football field again, like
best team, high school football team you've seen with your own two eyes.
Oh, man. 2010 Concord Minutemen. No. Yeah, it would be that De La Salle team. Yeah. I mean, watching those kids and watching what they do and how hard they play, and it was really incredible, and it kind of set a standard for me, and I would say for sure, it was, and I think they ended up writing a book about that season.
They did.
They
did.
Small World.
I was going to say, I think one of our Clayton Valley teams is in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We coach that. You know what? That's funny about that though. Like the story doesn't get told because they asked the head coach. So we're getting ready to play. Do we have time to tell the story?
Dude, we're going. Let's go.
So we got time. So we're playing De La Salle that week, and it was the week of the wildfires, and the head coach, he got stuck moving his daughter in to school or at a water polo tournament or something. Mm-hmm. So it's Monday, and my beeper goes off, and coach is and I call him back, and coach says, "You're gonna have to run practice." And I'm like 24 at the time, and I'm trying to figure out, just wrap my brain around coaching against De La Salle. And so I said, we are I got the team here. I said, we are never going to beat De La Salle. It's not going to happen. I said, but we're going to run the ball for 103 yards because Long Beach Poly ran the ball for 102.
Yep.
And that's how we're going to get a win out of this. And those kids fought and clawed. And the funny thing is the book talks about it was the dirtiest game they played in all year because at every moment, every snap was a fist fight to get to 103. And we ended up rushing the ball for 106 yards. And De La Salle's kind of, they're going off the field and our kids are celebrating like maniacs, because we lost.
And we lost 41-6.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I don't even know if the scoreboard kept working. They scored so much, but it was.
Well, when you have Maurice Drew on the field, that could happen.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It was a fun time.
That's awesome, man. Well, hey, dude. As always, it's a pleasure. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
Oh man,
this is fun, man.
This is awesome.
great.
Thanks so much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
You got it. And we'll do it again.
Awesome.
All right, bud.